Wind screamed across the endless ocean of the planet Nereon, tearing through metal towers and shaking the small floating platform where Eli Ward worked alone. He was a mechanic, fixing ships that passed too close to the storm belt. It was a hard life, quiet and dangerous. The sea below glowed faintly blue from strange alien plankton, and lightning cracked through the dark clouds like veins of fire. Eli was finishing repairs on a cargo drone when his radar started beeping. A small red dot blinked on the screen. Something was falling fast from orbit. He wiped rain from his visor and squinted. It wasn't a meteor. It was too controlled, too steady. Then the signal went dead. The object hit the sea miles away, sending up a column of steam. Great, Eli muttered, grabbing his jacket. Just what I need in a storm. He jumped into his small hovercraft and pushed the engines hard. Waves slammed against the hull as he moved toward the crash site. The rain was thick, the lightning close. His scanners barely worked. Then he saw it. A faint orange glow through the mist, a broken escape pod half sinking into the waves. He threw a rope line, pulled close, and forced open a hatch. Inside was someone. Not human. The figure was slender, skin pale blue, and covered in silver markings that pulsed faintly. Long hair floated in the water like silk. She was unconscious, her breathing weak. "Hey! Stay with me," Eli said, pulling her out. She was light, almost weightless. He wrapped her in a thermal sheet and started the engines back toward the station. The storm grew worse, as if the planet itself wanted to swallow them. Back at the station, Eli laid her on his repair table, checking for wounds. He found strange metal pieces embedded near her neck, like implants, but they looked damaged. He used his small scanner to stabilize her heartbeat. The readings were strange, unlike anything he'd seen. After some time, her eyes fluttered open. They were a deep violet color, glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked at him with confusion, then fear. When she tried to speak, the words were soft and musical but made no sense. "It's okay," Eli said slowly. "You're safe here. I won't hurt you." She didn't understand the words, but something in his tone calmed her. She looked around the small workshop filled with tools, wires, and the smell of metal. She tried to sit up, but winced in pain. Eli gently helped her lie back down. He brought her water, unsure she could even drink it. To his surprise, she took a small sip and nodded weakly. Then she pointed to the window where lightning flashed outside and said something in her own language, her tone urgent. Eli couldn't understand, but he could tell she was scared of whoever might be looking for her. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "No one's finding you out here." Hours passed. The storm didn't let up. Eli sat near the console, watching the scanner. Strange signals flickered at the edge of the radar. Multiple ships circling above the atmosphere. Military patterns, not civilian. They were scanning the ocean, maybe looking for the same pod. He looked back at the alien woman, who had fallen into a restless sleep. Her body shimmered faintly with every flash of lightning. Whoever she wasn't ordinary. He could tell by the strange emblem etched into the broken armor near her shoulder. It looked royal, ancient, something important. Eli rubbed his eyes and sighed. "You picked a bad neighborhood to crash in, lady." Suddenly, one of the scanners beeped sharply. A signal locked onto his coordinates. He froze. Someone had found him. He quickly cut power to the external lights and lowered the platform signal signature. The storm outside grew even louder, masking the hum of incoming engines. He rushed to the woman and whispered, "We've got company." Her eyes opened again, wide, alert. She understood danger, even if she didn't understand the words. She reached out, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. The markings on her skin glowed brighter, like fire through crystal. Eli felt a pulse of energy through his arm, and suddenly, the station lights flickered and died. "What the hell?" he breathed. Outside, 2 ships hovered above the waves, shining bright searchlights into the storm. The sound of engines echoed across the sea. Eli crawled to the window and watched them circle. They fired scanning beams toward the wreckage site, then turned toward a station. "Not good. Not good at all," he whispered. The woman stood weakly, using the table for balance. Her violet eyes met his, filled with fear and determination. She pointed at the floor beneath them, then at the window, then pressed her hand against her chest. Eli didn't fully understand, but he knew one thing. If those ships found her, she was dead. He made a quick decision. "Hang on," he said, moving toward the control panel. "We're going dark." He shut down every non-essential system. The platform sank slightly into the waves, becoming just another shadow in the storm. The ships circled once more, then drifted away, their lights fading into the rain. Eli sat back, soaked in sweat and adrenaline. He turned toward the alien woman. She was still watching him, breathing heavily but alive. Slowly, she gave a small nod, a gesture of thanks. Eli nodded back. "Yeah, you're welcome, whoever you are." Lightning flashed behind her, outlining her faintly glowing form. For a brief moment, she didn't look fragile anymore. She looked powerful, otherworldly. Eli didn't know it yet, but the stranger he had just saved wasn't just another lost traveler. She was the most wanted being in the galaxy, and by saving her, he had just changed his life forever. Morning came slowly on the ocean world. The storm had calmed, leaving behind soft waves and a gray sky. Eli stood on the platform, staring at the endless sea. He hadn't slept. Inside his small station, the alien woman rested under a thermal blanket. The night had been quiet, but the memory of the ships circling above still haunted him. Whoever they were, they hadn't given up yet. Eli walked inside, carrying a tray of food. The woman was awake. Sitting up now, her strange violet eyes following him. Her wounds had started to heal, glowing softly along the edges. The faint hum of her energy made the air feel warmer. "Morning," Eli said carefully, placing the tray beside her. "I don't know what you eat, but I've got protein bars and soup. That's the best I can do." She tilted her head, not understanding the words, but watched as he took a bite himself. After a moment, she copied him, tasting the soup. Her reaction was uncertain at first, but then she nodded slightly. "See? Not poison," Eli joked, smiling. She looked at him for a long time, then tried to speak again. Her voice was soft and melodic, but the language was impossible to understand. Eli shrugged helplessly. "Yeah, I don't get you either." He turned to his desk and pulled out a small translation device. It was old, scratched, and half broken, but maybe it would help. He placed it between them. The woman watched him curiously. "Okay, let's try this," Eli said, pressing a few buttons. "Say something." She hesitated, then spoke a short phrase in her language. The device buzzed, lights flickering, and then a rough translation came to the speaker. "Wem I?" Eli blinked, surprised. "You're safe. My name's Eli. You crashed on the Rion." She frowned, trying to process. Her voice came again, quieter this time. "You saved me?" "Yeah," he said with a small smile. "You were drowning out there." She looked down at her hands, as if unsure how to respond. Then, slowly, she said, "Thank you, Eli." Hearing his name from her felt strange. She spoke it carefully, almost reverently. Eli nodded. "You're welcome. Do you have a name?" There was a pause. Her eyes lowered. Then she said softly, "Lyra." "Lyra," Eli repeated. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." Days passed. Lyra recovered quickly, her strength returning faster than human biology should allow. She moved gracefully, silently observing everything in the workshop. Sometimes she touched the metal walls and the lights flickered, like her energy interacted with the station's power lines. Eli began to notice strange details. The metal around her always hummed faintly, and once, when a broken drone sparked, she simply placed her hand on it, and it started working again. "How did you do that?" Eli asked in awe. Lyra looked at her hand, and then at him. The translator hummed before speaking. "Energy listens, metal remembers." Eli laughed softly. "Right, energy listens. I'll remember that." But inside, he couldn't stop thinking about it. He had seen alien tech before, but nothing like this. Whoever she wasn't just another traveler. That night, as Eli checked the scanner, he noticed faint signals again, distant, circling the planet. They were still searching. He walked quietly to Lyra's room and saw her awake, sitting by the small window. They're looking for you, aren't they? He asked quietly. Lyra turned to him, her expression guarded. If they find me, you die. Eli frowned. Then I guess we'll make sure they don't. She stared at him for a long time, confusion and surprise flickering across her face. Why, help me, he sighed. Because you needed help, and because I hate bullies. For a moment, Lyra didn't speak. Then, for the first time, she smiled, just a small, uncertain smile, but it changed her face completely. The following morning, Lyra insisted on helping him with repairs. Eli tried to protest, but she was determined. When she worked beside him, machines seemed to obey her. Circuits reconnected faster, and energy flowed more smoothly. Eli couldn't explain it. You're like a living battery, he joked. The translator hummed, and Lyra replied, Battery? She tilted her head, confused. He chuckled. Never mind. Later that day, as Eli was fixing a power coil, the radar suddenly beeped again, stronger this time. Multiple ships were entering low orbit. Lyra's face grew pale. They come, she whispered. Eli rushed to the console. How do they keep finding us? I shut down all signals. Lyra touched her chest where the strange metal implants were. Trackers, she said. They find me. Without thinking, Eli grabbed his tools. Then we take them out. She looked at him, shocked. Dangerous. If removed wrong. I'd die. Eli met her eyes steadily. If we don't, they'll find you anyway. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Finally, Lyra nodded slowly. They worked through the night. Eli set up medical tools, his hands trembling. Lyra didn't flinch. Her trust in him was quiet, but real. When he removed the last metal fragment, a surge of blue light filled the room, humming through the walls. When it faded, the tracker was gone. Lyra gasped but smiled faintly, her strength returning. Free, she whispered. Outside, the scanner went silent. The ships passed by, unable to trace her signal anymore. Eli sat back, exhausted. Well, he said with a weak grin, guess that worked. Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes soft. You risked life for me. Why? He shrugged. Maybe I just like fixing broken things. She stared at him, thoughtful, then reached out and placed her hand gently over his. You fix more than metal, Eli. In the silence that followed, the hum of the ocean below and the faint flicker of distant stars filled the air. For the first time since the storm, the station felt warm, not because of power or lights, but because of something new neither of them could name. But far above them, beyond the clouds, unseen eyes were still watching. The search wasn't over. It had only just begun. Days turned into weeks on the lonely ocean station. The storms came and went, but Eli and Lyra remained hidden. Life slowly found rhythm between them. Quiet meals, shared repairs, long silences that no longer felt uncomfortable. Lyra spoke more now, her words smoother each day as the translator improved. She was learning English faster than Eli expected, often asking questions about human things. Why he worked alone, what laughter meant, why he always talked to machines. Eli didn't mind. It had been a long time since anyone cared to ask. I talked to them because they listen, he said once, tapping the side of a drone. Can't say that about people. Lyra smiled softly. You are strange, she said, then added, but kind. Their friendship grew in small moments like that. Eli repaired old drones while Lyra sat nearby, sometimes helping by touching a circuit or holding a tool steady. Her energy seemed to pulse with life, and machines around her always worked smoother, as if recognizing her presence. But there were still questions Eli couldn't ignore. Who exactly was she? Why were people hunting her? Every time he asked, she would look away, her face unreadable. One night, after dinner, Eli couldn't keep it in anymore. Lyra, I think I deserve to know who you really are, he said quietly. She didn't respond right away. The faint light from the ocean below reflected on her skin, making her look almost like a ghost. Then she spoke softly. You saved me, even when you did not know me. Why? Eli shrugged. Because you needed saving. That's what decent people do. Lyra's eyes lingered on him. My name is not just Lyra. It is Lyra Valistran, queen of the Dravari. Eli froze. Queen? Like actual queen. She nodded. My people do not know I live. They think I died when my ship fell. I ran away from my own guards. He frowned. Your guards? Why would they attack their queen? Lyra looked down at her hands. Because I refused their war. The council wanted to destroy human colonies near our borders. They said you were spreading too fast. I said no. They called it weakness. Eli stared at her in disbelief. So they tried to kill you for wanting peace? Yes, she said simply. Now they will kill anyone who helps me. Silence filled the room. Outside, lightning flashed across the distant horizon. Eli leaned back in his chair, exhaling. Well, he said finally, guess that explains why they're so persistent. Lyra's expression softened. You should not have helped me. They will come for you too. Eli smiled faintly. Too late for that. I already did. Something changed in her eyes then, something deeper than gratitude. She stood, walking slowly toward him. In my world, she said softly, no one helps without reason. What is yours? He looked at her and chuckled. You really don't get humans, do you? Sometimes we help just because it's right. Lyra tilted her head. Strange creatures, she murmured, always doing dangerous things for feelings. The next morning, Eli found Lyra studying his human books, manuals, old pictures, and maps. She seemed fascinated by Earth. So many colors, she whispered, touching an image of forests. Your world, it breathes. Eli smiled. It's not perfect, but yeah, it's home. She looked at him then, and her voice turned quiet. I had a home once. Golden skies, crystal waters. I miss it, but it does not miss me. Eli wanted to say something comforting, but before he could, an alarm buzzed softly on the console. Not an attack, just a low-range transmission. He checked the screen. It was a public data pulse, scattered across systems. He frowned. Lyra came closer. What is it? He turned the display toward her. Your empire. They're broadcasting your death message again. But, he pointed to the image. The coordinates matched this planet sector. Her face went pale. They are close. Eli's stomach tightened. Then we need to move. Lyra looked uncertain. Where can we go? The ocean is endless. They will find us. Not if we hide in the trenches, Eli said. There's a deep current below the surface. Metal platforms can float there without detection. I can modify the station to sink temporarily. She watched him work through the night. The sound of his tools echoed through the station while the ocean's soft hum filled the silence. When she tried to help, he smiled. You've done enough. Just rest. But she didn't rest. Instead, she stood nearby, her energy pulsing in rhythm with the machines. Together they turned the small station into something new, a vessel that could sink, hide, and rise again. When it was ready, Eli activated the descent sequence. The station slowly dipped beneath the surface, surrounded by glowing blue water. Outside, strange creatures swam by, leaving trails of light. Lyra watched in awe. It is beautiful, she whispered. Yeah, Eli said softly. Sometimes, hiding's not so bad. For the next few days, they stayed underwater, silent and unseen. Lyra shared more about her people, their traditions, their music, their way of binding metal and spirit together. Eli told her about Earth, about rain and coffee and broken engines that refused to stay fixed. Their conversations became easier. Trust had built its quiet bridge between them. One evening, as they sat near the glass window watching alien fish drift past, Lyra spoke without the translator. Eli, she said in halting English, you, my friend. Eli turned to her, surprised. Yeah, he said with a grin. You're my friend, too. She smiled, and for the first time since the crash, she looked at peace. But far above, hidden in the clouds, a small black probe drifted silently. Its sensors flickered as it scanned the ocean's surface, and found a faint, familiar signature. The hunters had found a trace again. The quiet days were almost over. The peace under the waves ended with a distant rumble that shook the walls of the station. Eli was tightening a panel when the alarms began to flash red. Lyra rushed to control room, her golden eyes wide with fear. "They found us," she whispered. Eli looked at the radar. 3 large ships circling above the water, their scanners cutting through the ocean like blades. "They're scanning deep," he said. "They know we're down here." Lyra's hands trembled. "We cannot fight them. Their ships have weapons that can melt metal." Eli wiped the sweat from his brow. "Maybe not fight, but we can slow them down." He started moving fast, grabbing tools, checking fuel levels, rerouting power. The station had old engines, rusty, unreliable. But if he pushed them hard enough, they could release a shock wave strong enough to blind scanners. It might destroy the base, but it could buy them time. Lyra caught his arm. "If you do that, you will not survive." He gave a small smile. "If I don't, neither of us will." For a moment, she looked at him in silence. Then she stepped closer. "You have done enough, Eli. You should go. Take one of the small drones and escape." He shook his head. "Not leaving you behind, Your Majesty." Lyra's eyes softened. "Do not call me that. Not now. Just Lyra." He nodded. "Then you're not losing me, Lyra." Outside, the water shimmered as bright beams of light pierced the deep sea. The alien ships were closing in. Eli started connecting cables, his fingers trembling. Sparks flew as he linked circuits that were never meant to meet. The station groaned in protest. "Come on," he muttered. "Hold together just a little longer." Lyra stood beside him, her energy glowing faintly. She reached out, placing her hand on the core's control surface. "I can help," she said quietly. "My energy can strengthen the shield." Eli looked up. "You sure?" She nodded. Our hearts burned brighter together. He didn't understand what she meant, but he trusted her. Together, they activated the core. The lights dimmed, the floor trembled, and a wave of glowing energy pulsed through the walls. Outside, the ocean turned bright gold, as if the sea itself was alive. Then came the first blast. A shock from above tore through the water, shaking everything. Metal panels fell. Pipes hissed steam. Alarms screamed. The alien ships had begun firing. Eli grabbed the controls, steadying the system. "They're hitting hard. I can't hold this." Lyra's voice was calm, steady. "We will hold." She raised her hands, and the air shimmered. Her body glowed brighter, merging with the station's energy. The machines responded to her presence. Circuits mending, engines pulsing with new life. Eli stared, amazed. "You're part of it." "I am part of everything," she said softly. Dravari energy connects life and machine. Outside, one of the alien ships faltered, its sensors blinded by the golden storm. Another descended lower, preparing to fire again. Eli gritted his teeth. "I can overload the secondary engines, create a magnetic pulse. It'll knock them out, but it'll drain everything here." Lyra looked at him, her voice gentle. "If you do that, there will be no power left for escape." "Then we'll improvise," he said with a grin. "That's the human way." Together, they set the overload. The hum of the engines grew louder and louder until it became a roar. The walls glowed red from heat. Lyra closed her eyes and whispered something in her native tongue, a prayer or a farewell. Then she looked at Eli. "If we survive this, I will show you my world." He smiled faintly. "Deal." The engines reached critical. "Now!" he shouted. Lyra unleashed her energy into the core, and a blinding pulse burst outward. It raced through the water like lightning, hitting the alien ships above. The scanners fried. One ship lost power completely and sank, vanishing into the depths. Another broke apart from the pressure. The last ship retreated, damaged but still alive. The ocean went quiet again, except for the slow hum of the dying station. The lights flickered weakly. Eli slumped against the console, breathing hard. We did it." Lyra looked pale, her glow dimming. "For now," she said softly. "But they will come again. They will not stop." Eli stared at her, determination burning in his eyes. "Then we'll be ready." The station creaked, sinking deeper. Water dripped from the ceiling. The engines were gone, but one emergency pod remained. It was small, barely enough for one. Eli began transferring power to it. You can use this. It'll get you out of the trench. Once you reach the surface, maybe your people find you. Lyra frowned. And you? I'll stay. Someone needs to make sure this thing doesn't blow while you launch. No, she said sharply. I will not leave you. He smiled tiredly. You already gave everything, Lyra. Let me give something back. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped forward and placed her forehead gently against his. You are strange, Eli, but you have the heart of 1,000 warriors. He chuckled weakly. I'll take that as a compliment. As the pod powered up, the walls shook again, another shockwave from above. Time was running out. Lyra's eyes filled with quiet sadness. When I see the stars again, I will remember you. He nodded. Just make sure they know not all humans are bad. She smiled softly. They will know. With one final surge of energy, the pod launched upward through the dark water. Eli watched it rise until it disappeared into the glowing blue above. Then he turned back to the console, his hand steady. Come on, old girl, he said to the station. Let's give her one last push. The engines flared, holding the collapsing core just long enough for the Queen's pod to escape the blast radius. Then the screen went dark, and silence claimed the deep. Far above, the pod broke through the surface, rising into the light of a new dawn. Lyra looked back at the rippling waves below. Her eyes shone, not with sorrow, but with hope. The human mechanic was gone, but his courage burned brighter than any star. The sun rose over the alien capital, its twin light streaking across the silver towers of the Dravari Empire. The city was alive with whispers, rumors of the Queen's return. No one had seen her for months, and many believed she had perished in the deep ocean. But now, a royal pod had been recovered from the southern trench, cracked and battered, yet still carrying life within. Inside the palace's healing chamber, Queen Lyra lay weak but alive. Her golden energy pulsed faintly under her skin, her breath soft but steady. Around her, royal healers moved quickly, speaking in hushed tones. Yet her eyes remained closed, her mind far away. She saw flashes of metal corridors, sparks, and a human's tired smile. When she finally opened her eyes, the first words she whispered were, Eli. The guards exchanged confused glances. None among them knew the name. Days later, when she regained her strength, Lyra called her council together. They expected speeches of revenge or power, but instead, she said something that silenced the entire hall. Prepare a search, she said. We will find the human who saved me. The counselors hesitated. One of them, an old advisor, spoke carefully. Your Majesty, if the human survived, he is lost to the sea. It would take endless cycles to find even a trace. Lyra's voice was calm but firm. Then we will search for endless cycles. The room fell quiet. None dared question her further. Weeks passed. Fleets of scouts swept across the ocean, scanning the depths. Most found nothing but ruins and debris from the destroyed base. Yet one small drone, barely functional, sent a faint signal from a trench far beyond the map zones. The Queen herself led the dive. When they reached the site, all they found was wreckage, twisted metal, shattered consoles, and silence. But near the broken engines, something caught Lyra's eye, a small metal tag half buried in the sand. She lifted it carefully. The letters were faded, but she could still read them. Eli Carter, mechanic, Earth Division. Her hands trembled. He was real, she whispered. The others watched in silence as she closed her eyes, clutching the tag to her chest. For a moment, her royal composure broke, and the sorrow of 1,000 stars showed on her face. Then, as if struck by a thought, she turned to her ship's technician. Is there any chance? Any trace of human life here? The technician scanned again, adjusting frequencies. After a moment, his eyes widened. There's something, Your Majesty. A faint biosignature in the sublayer rock. Very weak. Dig, she ordered. They worked for hours, machines cutting through the old layers of the collapsed structure. Finally, they reached a sealed chamber, small, dark, filled with water. Inside, surrounded by wreckage, was a cryopod, old, Human-made, still blinking faintly. Lyra's heart raced. She rushed forward and pressed her hand to control panel. Open it. The seals hissed, steam escaping into the cold water. Slowly, the pod lid lifted. Inside lay Eli, pale but intact, his face calm as if sleeping. The technicians gasped. He's been in stasis for weeks, maybe months. His body stable. Lyra's voice broke as she whispered. He kept his promise. They brought him aboard her ship and began treatment. Hours later, when his eyes fluttered open, he looked confused, then smiled weakly when he saw her. Guess I didn't drown after all. Lyra laughed softly, tears slipping down her cheeks. You never could make things easy, could you? He looked around at the alien ship, blinking. So, you're actually the queen? She nodded slowly. You saved a ruler of 10 worlds, Eli. He gave a small grin. And all I wanted was to fix an engine. The two sat in silence for a while, the hum of the ship surrounding them. Then she spoke gently. My people think of humans as reckless, fragile, but you proved otherwise. You showed us that courage is not born of power, but of choice. Eli looked down at his hands. I just did what anyone would. Lyra shook her head. No, only you did. Days later, the Queen made a royal announcement broadcast across her empire. She spoke of the mechanic who had saved her, who had risked everything without knowing who she was. She declared that humanity, once ignored by the galactic nations, would now be recognized as a world of value and courage. Across the stars, the message spread. The Queen's mechanic lives. Eli became both a legend and a symbol. The Dravari built a new station on the ocean's edge, naming it Unity's Reach. Lyra appointed Eli as its chief engineer. But for him, it was never about titles or fame. Every morning, he still worked on engines, fixing ships, tightening bolts. And sometimes late at night, he would find Lyra standing beside him, watching the stars through the glass dome. You know, he once said quietly, back on Earth, they'd never believe this story. She smiled softly, then let them dream. It is dreams that make your kind unstoppable. He looked at her, smiling back. Guess I'll keep dreaming. Then, above them, the twin suns rose over the horizon, light spilling across the waves. A human and an alien queen stood side by side. Two lives bound by courage, trust, and an impossible friendship that changed the galaxy forever. The universe would remember them not as ruler and servant, but as the Queen's mechanic. The end.